Welcome everybody to this edition of Attention Talk Video. I'm your host, ADHD and Attention Coach Jeff Copper, and we're here today with Dr. Roberto Olivardia. Dr. Olivardia, welcome to the show.
Oh, great being here as always.
We love having you on the show. I love your stuff, and you always make great distinctions that I think are very helpful. And today we're talking about having ADHD and bipolar. I have to be honest with you. I actually had thought years ago that you couldn't have the two together. Now, from you actually can have both conditions at the same time, correct?
Absolutely, and they're quite comorbid, or you'll often see them together. So about 20% of people with ADHD have bipolar disorder, and studies show that anywhere from 50 to 90% of people with bipolar disorder have ADHD. So they're highly related, and you can have both as two distinct diagnoses. And in fact, when people do have both, it's associated with higher impairment, with higher rates of suicide, with higher just general sort of depressive and manic episodes, and higher impulsivity.
So 50 to 90%, that's a big number. And when you combine those two together, it's a more debilitating condition?
Oh, without a doubt, absolutely. I mean, bipolar disorder in general is a significantly serious psychiatric disorder. It has one of the highest suicide rates. About 20% of people with bipolar disorder commit suicide. Mm-hmm. About 50%, 1 in 2, attempt suicide.
Wow.
So when you combine that with ADHD, it can become a very, very serious problem. And unfortunately, oftentimes one of those disorders often don't get diagnosed when people actually have both.
Which is my next comment, because many times it seems to me very subtly they present very similarly. So I would think making the diagnosis and cutting that with a Swiss Army knife to determine it is ADHD or bipolar is difficult, or telling that it's the two combined. Can you speak to that for a second?
Oh, without a doubt. I mean, it's very important that somebody really assess for what's ADHD and what is a mood disorder. And in general, I would say if there's sort of one thing that people can take away is the idea of how context specific it is. So for ADHD, generally the emotion or the emotion dysregulation mm-hmm. will be very context specific. Mm-hmm. So somebody is not getting a toy that they want mm-hmm. and they completely have a tantrum. Somebody is very upset that they just got broken up with, so they're going to be feeling depressed. With a bipolar disorder, it's often not context specific. Mm-hmm. It could be triggered, or it's triggered by something that really is out of step with the level of intensity of the emotion. So some of my patients who are depressed or who have manic episodes will say that they wake up sometimes mm-hmm. feeling that way, that it's just this general sort of sense that feels so internal. Mm-hmm. Whereas with ADHD patients, you'll often hear it's more something external that then informs how they feel internally.
It seems to me that if you're diagnosed with, particularly with bipolar, that just bipolar, if it's 50 to 90%, you should actually seek out and I guess be screened for ADHD. And my gut is there's not a lot of people around that are schooled in this, because it seems to me it's a subtle art. What do you think?
Definitely. I would say that it is important if you are diagnosed with bipolar disorder to be assessed for ADHD, as it is if you're diagnosed with ADHD to be assessed for a whole host of other psychiatric disorders. But absolutely, it's very important because oftentimes the symptoms can mimic each other. Mm-hmm. So to see someone who's an expert in ADHD, see someone who's an expert in mood disorders is very important.
Well, I appreciate that education. It's always helpful to have you on the show, and so thank you very much, all right?
Sure, you're welcome.
Take care, everybody.